Today we start a new topic. Brachos Daf Daled Amud Beis. Page 4b. Tanya. We learned, our rabbis taught. Chachamim asu siyag l'divreihem. The sages made a fence for their words. Shelo yehei adam bamin hasada be'erev v'omer elech levesi v'ochel kima v'eshta kima v'ishan kima v'achkach echor kriya shema v'espalel. The sages, to prevent somebody from missing the evening prayer, where they would say, a person comes home from the field and he's tired and he says, I'm going to eat a little bit, I'm going to drink a little bit, and then I'm going to take a nap, short nap, and then I'll read the Shema, the evening Shema, and say the evening prayers. What would happen in such a case? V'chotafto shina, he would get overtaken by sleep. V'nimtzu yoshin kol halayla, and it comes out he sleeps the whole night and he misses the evening prayer. Rather, this is speaking specifically about the Arvit prayer. That is to say, the rabbis said that a person should not eat or take a nap or drink once the time of the evening prayer arrives. Generally, we avoid sitting down to a meal within a half hour of nightfall, unless you have someone who's going to remind you and make sure that you go to shul and make sure that you pray. That's the only way a person can have a meal within a half an hour of nightfall. Rather, they said, Avol, what's better is Adam ba min hasoda be'erev, a person should come home from work in the evening, nichnas lebeis hakneses, and go into the synagogue, im rogo likros korei, v'im rogo lishnos shona. If he knows how to read Torah, he should read Torah. If he knows how to learn Mishnah, he should study Mishnah. And then, v'korei kriya shema u'mispalel, he should read Shema and pray, v'ochel pito u'mevarech, and he should eat his dinner, eat his bread, and say the grace after meals. And now comes something shocking. The Talmud says, v'chol ha'over al divrei chachamim chayov misa. Whoever goes against the words of the sages should get the death penalty. Essentially, if a person eats before Mariv, even though it's not a direct prohibition of the Torah to eat before Mariv, but somebody who does this should get the death penalty. Yeah.
I go to late Mariv every night during the winter. They eat before.
People eat before. So it's the best thing to do in that case is to eat before it gets dark. It's hard to get, but in that case,
I thought though if you go every night to a minyan,
yes,
it changes things.
Yes. If you're going with a minyan, and especially if you miss the minyan, you'll get a phone call. So someone will remind you. So that's the correct thing to do. You make sure if I'm not here, somebody will give me a call. Right? You'll call him if he doesn't come to shul. Yeah. Now, the Gemara asks, why do we refer to it so strongly? Chayav Misa, the death penalty, for going against the words of the sages. Maishna b'chul duchta de lo katani chayav misa, maishna haka de katani chayav misa. You never, any other sin that a person does, any other thing wrong that a person does, we don't say this, that they get the death penalty. Why in this case do we refer to this idea of death penalty? The Gemara answers, Ibois ema mishum de ika ones shena, v'ibois ema la fuke miman de amar tfilos arvis rishus kamash malan de chova. I might say that it's because there's a greater risk in this case that isn't present by other mitzvahs. One is that because it's the nighttime, a person is liable to fall asleep. So we're being extra vigilant and strong in our words to prevent a person from doing something that's so risky. And the other reason is because since there are people who say that the evening prayer, the Ma'ariv prayer, is not such an obligation, which by now it has become an obligation, but since there are opinions who say that it's not so strict, so therefore we want to be extra strict about it and make sure that that people are going to give it the correct amount of respect. Now, so obviously, that when the Talmud says Chayav Misa, he's liable to death penalty, it doesn't mean it practically. And I would point out, by the way, in general, when the Torah refers to the death penalty, Judaism does not believe in the death penalty. The Torah says that for this crime a person is executed and for that crime a person is executed. If you learn the Talmud and you understand the tradition that goes along with those passages of Torah, you understand that it is fundamentally, intentionally, practically impossible. So anyone who says it now, however, so the Torah doesn't believe in the death penalty, midoraita. However, halacha gives jurisdiction, gives leeway to the courts of each time to determine if they feel that a crime is so egregious that a person needs to be executed for it, then they could do that. The melech the king is given the right to establish rule of law, and if he feels that it's necessary, he can do that. But when the Bible says, most yamus, they shall surely die, it's not practical. Just as a case in point, the person, in order for a person to fulfill the requirements to receive the biblical death penalty, they have to be warned within 3 seconds of committing the crime by 2 witnesses who are not related to each other, and the criminal has to respond to the people who warn him. I hear what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, I understand that this means that I can be executed, and I'm doing it anyways, knowing that I'll be executed. And then if a person says that, you could argue that he's insane, and his shoyte is pater. He's exempt because he's insane. So, practically speaking, it would never happen. 3 seconds. Toch kedei dibur.
Why do you say all those things from every 3:25?
Zest? It's not practical. So the biblical death penalty is not real. It's not meant to be there. Why it's there, we discussed another time. But it's not. People who point to the Bible as proof that we should have a death penalty, they don't know what they're talking about. All right, but nonetheless, so Allah, how much more so here when we say whoever goes against the words of the sages gets the death penalty, we don't mean that practically. And therefore the question is, why do we refer to the death penalty here? So the answer is that you have to look at it with Torah eyes. What is the teaching that the Torah is trying to teach us by referring to the death penalty, especially because it's not practical? Because they don't mean it for real. They only mean it that there's a teaching here to learn. And so I found 2 interpretations to this that mirror the two reasons that are given by the Talmud. One is because of sleep, and the other is because people don't give enough respect to the evening service because they think it's more lenient. And the first interpretation is of Ben Ish Chai. He says the reason it refers to death is because of the element of sleep. Sleep is 1/60th of death in Talmudic language. Or on a more symbolic level, just saying it in English, the difference between the sleep and death are similar in that a person gives up, they lose their consciousness, they lose their ability to choose, they lose their ability to act with intent when they sleep, when they're sleeping. So, why do we refer to sleep? Why do we think of sleep as different than death? Because you're going to wake up the next morning. The only difference between death and sleep is that death is permanent and sleep is temporary. Right? But in this case, Yoshen Kol Halayla. a person will sleep through the whole night and miss the entire night. And from the point of view of the nighttime, the entire night is lost. He never lived through the night because he fell asleep. And so, in this case, when a person goes against the words of the sages, what they have done is they've put themselves in a situation, by going against the words of the sages, they've put themselves in a situation where they effectively are dead to the world for that time, and they miss the most important part of life, which is the mitzvahs, which we should do in life. And there's a special mitzvah to do in the nighttime, as we'll discuss a little bit later. And so, that's point one. And then comes the explanation of Rav Kook. Rav Kook says, I'll paraphrase the way I understand what he says. We always say the Torah is a teaching, right? This is a mistake that people have when they refer to the Torah as the Bible. I just did a minute ago, but I did it on purpose because I was referring to the words of the Bible without understanding the teaching that goes with it. In Judaism, we don't refer to the Torah as Bible, we refer to it as the teaching. The difference between a Bible is that it lies in a book. And it's essentially dead. It has no life. It is what it is, and you have to try your best to read the book and interpret it correctly. Whereas, when the Torah is a teaching, it's alive. And it's taught to you by somebody who knows you and cares about you and understands what you're going through and can bring the Torah to life in your life. And this is the meaning of Chachamim asu siyag l'divrayim. The sages made a fence around their words. That is actually bringing the Torah to life, because they're applying the Torah to the real world circumstances of an ordinary human being who comes home tired from work. And if we go against the words of the Chachamim, we have effectively removed the living nature of Torah. We've removed the living and breathing, dynamic quality of Torah. We've taken the humanity out of Torah, and we've rendered it a dead, lifeless text. So these two interpretations relate, I think, to the first one says, Mishum de'ika ones shena. The reason why we said that one is chayav misa, why one is liable to the death penalty, is because of the particular quality of sleep. And the second one is Mishum la'fuke mimanda omar tfilas arvis rishus. To take away from the person who says that the nighttime prayer is voluntary, that it's not so strict, which is to say that we have to understand the psychology, the human psychology that comes into the learning of Torah. And without bringing the human psychology understanding into the learning of Torah, one has no life. We always have to understand Torah through the lens of real life.